technology is not my forte, to put it mildly, but I'm working on it. I'm trying, because I think this is such a great way for us to stay connected. And through these crazy times, it's really important for us to have this community, and that I realize not everybody can come to class. We can't always be in person, but because of the technology that we have now, we can still stay together. And I think it's really important. So that being said, welcome, welcome, welcome to my little course that I'm doing here, the Everyday Dog. I think it's important to keep in mind these things that we can and should be doing with our dogs every day, because here's the deal. Training your dog doesn't just happen when you strap on a treat bag, put a training collar on your dog, and run them through their basic obedience drills. Learning happens every interaction that you have with your dog. They're learning something. So let's be thoughtful, let's be intentional about it, and make sure that we're actually teaching them what we want them to learn. Because trust me, they're learning. And whether it's what we want them to learn or something that we wish they wouldn't be learning, they're learning. So let's be intentional with it. So that's the Everyday Dog. And those of you that aren't familiar with me, my name is Cindy Scott. I am the founder and director of Dogs Etc. Dog Training, where since I founded my company way back in the last century, 1997, with one simple mission: to enrich dogs' lives. I mean, that's really what it is. It's enriching their lives by changing simple little things. Makes all the difference in the world. And honestly, I've seen it so many times. By enriching their life, we enrich our own. And that's what it's all about, making those little changes. So what I want to talk about today is mindset. It's about what goes on up here changes everything. And there's subtle little mindset shifts and little paradigm shifts that can really help you with your training and really help to communicate with your dog what you want them to do. And that's really what it is. It's about communicating to them what we want them to do. So the first mindset is taking responsibility. What's that old breakup line? It's not me, it's you. Or no. The old breakup line is it's not you, it's me, whatever. No. It's you. It's totally you. And I want you to be aware of how your behavior impacts your dog's behavior. And there's subtle things that we do that are actually miscommunicating to the dogs what we want them to do. And it's so easy for us to fall into that trap of blaming the dog. Oh, the dog is being willful, he's being stubborn, he's being spiteful. Honestly, he probably just doesn't know, because often we really send those mixed signals. So for instance, if a little dog barks and we pick them up, we're really reinforcing that barking because they got our attention. They bark at the neighbors and we dash in and we pick them up and maybe give them a little bit of a cuddle. And so what your dog is learning is, oh, I bark. It gets their attention. Yay, I'm going to bark again. So we can inadvertently really be rewarding the thing that we don't want. And the big thing is the games that you play with your dog. Because remember, learning isn't just happening when you're thinking, oh, I'm going to train my dog. Learning is happening every interaction that your dog has with you. And games are huge. The power of play. Never forget that. So games that we play with our dogs can inadvertently actually be rewarding bad behavior. For instance, the chase me game. If you are chasing your dog around the yard, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you, and they learn to run from you. Well, your dog doesn't know the difference between running from you in the backyard and running from you in the front yard when they get out that door. So they get out that door, and what they learn is, oh, we're gonna play chase. I'm gonna run, and they're gonna chase me. It's lots of fun. Da, 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 da. Very dangerous game. Now, once your dog gets older and has a really good recall and their obedience is spot on and you don't have issues with them running away, then yeah, play the chase game and then stop and have them do some recall. So there's ways that we can work with that. But if your dog is running or your recall is chase game is not a good one. Another game that guys play, I don't know what this is. It's something on the Y chromosome. I don't know. But guys play this game all the time where they want to play rough with their dog and they get them all excited and all amped up. And the dogs are actually learning to mouth and to bite. And those can be the dogs that have playful biting issues because they think, oh, well, that's how I'm supposed to engage with people. That's how I'm supposed to play. So we really want to set those boundaries at all times. What's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and be consistent with it. So when I say boundaries too, I want you to keep in mind that as a puppy comes into your household, you want to give them the same rules at 8 weeks that they're going to have at 8 months and 8 years. It's not fair to allow an 8-week-old puppy who's only 10 pounds to jump all over you and to mouth at you and so forth, knowing full well that it's a Mastiff puppy and he's going to be maybe 180 pounds or whatever. So a few months from now, when he's 40 pounds heavier, they grow so fast, it's not going to be fair to let him do the same thing because he's not going to know how much bigger he is. So you want to give them the same rules in puppydom that they're going to have as adult dogs. Again, that consistency, because they don't know. They don't know that they're 100 pounds now or whatever. And that's why if you do have them in puppyhood, oh my gosh, take advantage of it. You know, when they're young and you can pick them up if you need to, take advantage of it and teach them how they're supposed to behave 6 months, 6 years from now. Set those boundaries and those expectations, which is the second thing I want you to keep in mind. Set realistic expectations. Humans, we're so stupid. We tend to either set very low expectations or too high of expectations. We want to keep it realistic. For instance, too low of expectations, we don't think dogs are capable of learning certain things. And I assure you, they are more than capable. The things that dogs have learned and can learn it's mind-blowing. And if you haven't already, I really encourage you to research your dog's breed, or what you think their breeds are. Find out what they have been used for previously. It's so fascinating. So fascinating, all the things that we've used dogs for, and things that we're continuing using them. I mean, the police dogs, the military dogs, the things that they do, the therapy dogs, of course. One of my favorite stories is back in like the 17th and 18th century, you know, when there were dirt streets and the streets weren't paved. Cobblers, not only was it part of their business to make shoes, but they would clean shoes. And you have to keep in mind, again, the streets are dirty, and so shoes get dirty, da 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 da. So I remember reading this story in 17th, 18th century France. They would actually have these little poodle mixes, and they would train them to go out into the street and pee on people's shoes. So then the people would have to have their shoes cleaned. And I thought, that's genius, not only from a dog training standpoint, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, you know, create your own customers. But if your dog, or if a dog can learn to pee on somebody's shoes on purpose, they can definitely learn to pee in a pee zone in your backyard and on command. So let's not underestimate them, to be sure. And then higher expectations, or over expecting too much from your dog. I think I see both of them, but this is one that I think is most prevailing and is most difficult for people to get over. And let me be clear about this. There's no such thing as perfection. There's no perfect dog. There's no perfect person. There's no perfect spouse. There's no perfect child. There's no such thing as perfection. I call it the Lassie myth, where, see Lassie do it, or whatever movie that has a dog in it, and we think, well, our dog should be able to do that. Lassie had, 5 handlers off screen, and they edited it. Um, and dogs mess up. We mess up. Nobody's perfect 100% of the time. And I guess this kind of triggers me from my childhood or something, where it was expected to be perfect. Newsflash, I'm not. I'm going to mess up. I could do things 1,000 times, and maybe 1,001 times I don't get it right. Professional athletes, Olympic athletes, they spend their waking days 24/7 working on those drills and practicing, and then they get to the big game and they miss the kick or whatever. Cindy just did a sports analogy. But it's true. We mess up. Things happen. A dog can be doing something wonderfully, and then maybe they're having an off day and they don't have that spot on recall, or maybe they picked up the wrong thing to chew or something. I don't know. I can't tell you how many of the CGC, the Canine Good Citizen test that we do, and dogs are doing the difficult things like the stays and the proper walking on leashes. Those are hard. But how many times we get to the sit and it's like they've never heard the word sit before. Nobody's perfect. Things happen, and your dog definitely isn't perfect. They're sentient beings. They have their own thought process, which I love. And it's true. And you'll hear me say a million times, but it's so true. I actually love it when they screw up, because it tells you what's going on behind the eyes. You see their true personalities come out. I think that's one of the fun things when we do agility. Not only is it fun to see them, do all the obstacles and all of that, but when they get it wrong or they make up their own way of doing the obstacle, you see that little glimmer of what's going on inside behind the eyes, and their personality and their thought process. And it makes you go, oh yeah, that is kind of true. You can just go around, or instead of jumping over the hurdle, you can just go under it. Yeah, that's true. That's what I loved about the kids when my kids were little, and seeing things from their point of view, and they would say stuff and I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess. Yeah, it kind of makes us think. And so, so not only is there no such thing as perfection, I kind of like the imperfection. I like it when they mess up. I like what makes them and brings out their character. So, so take your ego out of it. It's not about having that perfect dog. It's not about you. It's not about that. And laugh if your dog screws up, or, he fetches the wrong thing, or, he breaks because he wants to see that squirrel. Laugh now or laugh later. Laugh now, enjoy it. Enjoy his personality. So just take that whole perfect dog off the table. And there's dogs that, even military dogs aren't perfect 100% of the time. Newsflash, or police dogs. I like seeing when the police dogs or the Schitzen trained dogs be a dog and get distracted by a squirrel or something. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I kind of like it when they show who they are. So revel in the imperfections. Enjoy that. And then the other thing to keep in mind is, and this is one that's really difficult for us. So spoiler alert, this is going to be a paradigm shift for you. So really open your brain about this. But it's about catching your dog being good. Whether you asked for them to do a particular thing, or they just did it on their own. For instance, if your dog just comes up to you, oh, good job, thank you very much. Whether you have a treat or not, you verbally praise them, pet them on the head, give them a little bit of attention, catch them being good. Every time they come up to me, I'm going to acknowledge that because that's what I want them to do. I want them to be paying attention to me. They come up and they sit, oh, even bigger praise. Oh, who's a good dog? Thank you very much. Blah, blah, blah. Really let them know that's what you want them to do. Because remember, the more that we reward something, what we're doing is we're just increasing the probability that they're going to do that again. Again, dogs are sentient beings. They make their own choices. Okay, if you didn't want a dog that had a personality and made choices, then I highly recommend you to get, I don't know, a stuffed animal or a robot or something. So they are making their own choice. Should I come to you, or should I go chase that squirrel? Should I come to you, or should I go cross the street? So every time that we reward a behavior, again, we're just increasing the probability that that behavior is going to reoccur and reoccur more frequently. Okay. It's Thorndike's law. It's basis of behaviorism. It is, and us too, behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. And again, it's really about helping your dog make good choices. And that's what it is. Because your dog isn't going to live on a leash or on a choke chain or a pincher collar, or e-collar, or any of that stuff. I hope not anyway. And when you need for them to come to you, when you need for them to respond to you, they're going to be off leash, because that's how they live their life. Hopefully, again, anyway. So if your dog comes up to you, even if you didn't ask, oh, good job, thank you very much, blah, 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 blah. Let them know that they're doing the right thing. And don't forget your verbal praise. That's another thing. We forget to talk and give feedback. Yes, treats are great. And I think you'd be crazy not to use food. But don't forget the power of praise and just that feedback. And one thing that I like about using praise, your praise is a secondary reinforcer. Other secondary reinforcers are like a clicker. Clicker training, if you do clicker training or you're interested in clicker training, it's basically just a secondary reinforcer. It takes on the meaning of the food. It's something that your dog becomes a conditioned reinforcer. So it's something that takes on the meaning of something good for your dog. And a clicker is great. I use them a lot for especially trick training or behavior modification on complex behaviors or sequencing, those types of things. But it's just not practical to carry around all the time. I mean, I forget my phone and things that I do need to carry around with me all the time. So you don't always have a clicker with you, but you've got your voice. And the other thing I like about the voice that you can't do with a clicker is every time you click, it sounds the same. It's exactly the same. Whether your dog performed beautifully or was with their recall. A click is a click is a click. It's the same sound. And there's pros to that. But I like the voice because there's a difference between good dog and good dog, good dog, good dog. I mean, you can really tune it up, tune it down, depending on how well your dog does. And the better response should get the better reward. So the better your dog responds, the faster they come to you, the quicker they do that sit, the more readily they listen to you, should get the best reward. So if you're using food, you can give a jackpot, give a handful of treats if they come racing to you. Or again, there's a difference between good dog and good dog and then playing with them. There's a difference between one little treat and a handful of treats. Okay, but a click is a click is a click is a click. And don't get me wrong, I do clicker training. I love clicker training, but just again, for your everyday dog, don't forget your praise because you've always got your praise. So use it again, and don't take the good behavior for granted. When your dog is doing what you want, make sure you give them that feedback. When they're laying down nicely chewing their bone, who's my good dog? That's what I want. When you take them outside and they pee outside, good dog, praise them, let them know they did the right thing for sure. Even if your dog is perfectly potty trained, it doesn't hurt to throw a little, hey, great job every now and then, right? Everybody likes to know they're doing a good job. So use it. Use it. Don't take it for granted. And what we silly humans tend to do is we do just that. We take the good behavior for granted. They're doing something beautifully. They're quiet. They're chewing their bone. They're walking nicely next to us, ignoring all the other dogs and squirrels and everything. And what do? We ignore them. We blow them off. But they bark or they lunge or I don't know, they chew the wrong thing. That's what gets our attention, right? So what we can, again, inadvertently be teaching them is to do exactly what we don't want them to do, because that's when they get our attention. Oh my gosh, mind blown, right? So I want you to switch it around and catch your dog being good. Do not take the good behavior for granted. And that's what we do. We ignore it completely. But the minute they screw up, then we're all over them. So I want you to really change that around. 90% of your training is teaching what you want, which is the next thing I want you to keep in mind. Be proactive, not reactive. And that's exactly what we tend to do. We ignore the good and we give all our attention to the bad. And you need to just flip that on its ear. I want you to give all your attention. Not that you ignore the bad, don't get me wrong. There's reprimands and consequences and all of that. But really 90% of this is teaching them what we want them to do. If they're doing what we want them to do, they're not doing what we don't want them to do. Teach a mutually exclusive behavior. For instance, so often, especially with adolescent dogs, uber attention seeking, I see a lot where they're jumping and they're mouthing on people, pay attention to me, look at me, pulling on people's clothes. Lots of jumping, even barking can be attention seeking. So my first question to everybody, and this is something I want you to ask yourself, if your dog is doing something you don't like, if it's jumping, attention seeking, peeing on the couch, whatever it is, if it's doing something you don't like, the first question is always, what do you want them to do in this situation? How do you want them to get your attention? Where do you want them to pee? How do you want them to behave? Oh, instead of pulling, how do you want them to walk with you? And it's so funny. I always say that and pose that question to people, and the blank stares of, I don't understand. I'm trying to process what you just said. I don't understand. What do you mean what I want him to do? So for instance, instead of peeing on your rug, we want them to pee outside in the pee zone. So that's what we focus our efforts on, is really rewarding what we want them to do. Instead of jumping to get your attention or barking to get your attention, teach them to sit quietly. If they're sitting quietly, they're not jumping, they're not pulling on your clothes, they're not barking at you. Reactivity in dogs is one of the biggest things I see right now. I would say a good 50-60% of dogs are reactive. When you take them out on a walk, they're lunging, barking at other dogs, other people. They're reactive. And I always get the same question. Well, how do I stop that? How do I stop this? How do I stop this? And yes, there's consequences and there's reprimands and there's things that we do. But again, the biggest thing is really rewarding what we want. And it gets a little tricky when it comes to reactivity and barking, because what we want them to do is nothing. We want them to be quiet. And so what we have to do is catch them before they start doing what we don't want them to do. So it's rewarding them for the quiet and not the barking. It's rewarding them for paying attention and not the reacting to everything. Because if they're sitting quietly paying attention to you and looking at you, they're not even looking at the other dogs or the squirrels or the other things that they're going to react to. So it's really, again, changing our mindset about catching them being good before they start doing the bad behavior. So work on your sit. If your dog is sitting, there's 1,000 things they can't be doing if they're sitting with you, like jumping. The best way to get rid of a bad habit is to replace it with a good habit. So that's the biggest paradigm shift I'm going to give to you, but it's super, super important. And you can apply this to every aspect of not just your life with your dog, but every aspect of your life in general. That's food for thought now, isn't it? Okay. So if you find yourself getting in the trap of, oh, the dog is bugging me, he's doing this, he's doing that, I don't want your laundry list of complaints. I want to know what you're going to do about it. I always say I am the worst guest at a pity party. I am not bringing balloons, okay, or a gift. My gift is a kick in the butt for you to get going and doing what you should be doing. No matter what's going on, I give you 5 minutes of boo-hoo, poor me, and then let's get working. What's our plan? What's our plan of attack? I don't care what's going on or what your problem is, whether it's with your dog or other issues in your life. Don't be a victim. Be strong and go after what you want. If your dog is sitting, they're not jumping. If they're quiet, they're not barking. If they're walking nicely next to you, they're not pulling. If they're, I don't know, what else do dogs do? If they're laying chewing a Kong, they're not chewing your woodwork. Okay. So being proactive about it, to be sure. So don't get caught up in the, how do I stop my dog from doing this? No, it's about what would you rather have your dog do? That's what I want you to think about. And then the other thing is to really think about why your dog is doing it. And this leads me into introduce a concept of the type of training that I do. I call it holistic dog training because I'm not just looking at your dog's behavior. I'm looking at why are they doing what they're doing. I'm looking at other aspects in your dog's life that contribute to that behavior. We can stop the dog from chewing things or being destructive in your house. But if we don't get to the root cause of it, then it can manifest itself in other problem behaviors. For instance, destruction. So puppies, dogs are destructive in the house. They're ripping things apart. Why are they doing it? They're bored, they're anxious, they're nervous. Typically what happens then if they're destructive in the house, then people kick them outside and they put them in, they get relegated to the backyard. And now they're even more stressed and more nervous and more bored, more nervous because of birds. Maybe, I don't know what I'm thinking. Well, I don't know what goes on in this head. And then they're going to be destructive in the backyard. And they're going to be ripping things up and destroying things. And then what happens is people will build runs for that, put them in a cement run. Okay, there's nothing to destroy in a cement run. So now the dog can't destroy things, but he's still bored. He's still nervous. He's still anxious. He's still got those underlying root problems. So now instead of destroying things, now maybe he's barking, vocalizing, whining, crying, the incessant barking that happens. And then what do people do is they'll put a collar on him. They'll put a shock collar on him. So now whenever he barks, he feels pain. So now he's going to stop barking, but he's still bored. He's still nervous, still anxious. So now he's going to start doing maybe some pacing, some OCD behaviors. Okay? A lot of herding dogs will do this. They just pace and they circle. Sometimes OCD behaviors can be even like self-mutilation, where they'll lick and they'll lick and they'll lick and lick granulomas, pulling out hair, different things. Birds, that's why birds will literally feather pluck. They're bored, they're stressed, they're anxious. So the holistic part of it is we want to go, okay, what's the cause? What's the root problem here? And get that taken care of, and then everything else is going to fall into place. So if he's bored, you got to give him some toys, give him something to do. Mental stimulation as much as physical. 5 minutes of mental stimulation is worth 20 minutes of physical activity. And if you're taking your dog for walks or jogging with them or something, what you're doing is you're just building up their stamina. So at first, a 10-minute walk is going to wear them out, and then they're going to build up their stamina. And now it takes a 20-minute walk and then a 30-minute walk and It's like a marathon runner building up their endurance, or so I'm told. I don't know. I never saw the appeal to running. Why would you run and jog on purpose? I don't know. People, one of my friends, she loves to jog. She's a big runner. I'm like, what? I don't know. I always say I'm not running unless somebody's chasing me. And even then I'm gonna die, so I might as well stop. But you want to exercise this with your dog. Yes, physical exercise is good, especially young dogs, adolescent dogs, puppies. They need to run. They need to get it out of their system, to be sure. But you also need to bring them in and exercise this by doing training, obedience commands, toys, and that's something we're actually going to talk about tomorrow a lot. How to auto train this. But exercise and enrichment is huge. Is huge. So with behavior, you've got exercise and enrichment, keeping them busy, keeping them stimulated. And then another layer of this is nutrition, which we're going to talk about on Wednesday, how to read a food label, what types of food is available, what you should be feeding your dog. Dogs that have malnutrition, they have behavior issues. I work with a lot of rescue dogs, and this is something that we see all the time. So, and nutrition, vitamin deficiencies can lead to, things like coprophagia, which is a fancy term. Everything sounds better in Latin, doesn't it? Latin and French, everything sounds better. But coprophagia basically means stool eating. A lot of dogs will eat their stools because sometimes they're lacking some nutrients. Another big aspect and a thing when it comes to holistically looking at your dog's behavior is health and wellness. There's a lot of chronic conditions that can contribute to behavior problems. And this is something we always want to keep in mind. If your dog is doing something, always in the back of my brain is, could this be symptomatic of something physiological? And if you are interviewing trainers, ask a million questions. And one of the questions, if a trainer doesn't ask you, you should go on to another trainer. And that is, does your dog have any medical conditions? Are they on any medication? And this is something I ask the first time meeting a dog. I want to know, because I want to keep that in mind as we do stuff with the dog. If it's going to be physically limited, for instance, if it has like a luxating patella, or if it has some hip dysplasia or something like that, obviously we're not going to be doing lots of walking. Dogs with luxating patellas, we can do some agility with severe modifications, but it's not something I would recommend right off of the gate. Also, if your dog is on certain medications, prednisone, steroids for one, they make them thirsty, so they drink more, so they have to pee more. So of course that is going to have an effect potentially on their potty training, Other conditions, of course, diabetes is one I know all too well. I've had 2 dogs now with diabetes, and it was their behavior that ding, 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 there's something going on. I have to take you to the vet. The first one, my dear Herschel, years ago, gosh, it's been maybe 15 years since we lost him. Oh gosh. And he started food stealing. He started counter surfing. Never ever did that. He started doing it when he was, I don't know, when he was diagnosed, 11, I guess, something like that. He'd never done it his entire life. And he started, stealing stuff out of the trash cans, counter surfing, because he was ravenous, because diabetic, he wasn't getting any nutrition. So he was ravenous. And he started having some potty accidents, peeing, which he'd never done before. And then watching him closer, and he was drinking more, and sure enough, he was diabetic. So another one, just to give you more to think about, is parasites. Especially if you have puppies. If your puppy has a parasite, which is super common with puppies, because they're so contagious, and some like Giardia are just like, I don't know what the percentage, but it's like 90% of puppies have Giardia because it's just so contagious. They can't hold their bowel, and sometimes their bladder too, because, well, I've never had parasites, but I can imagine how that kind of impacts everything. One of the rescue dogs we have now, he potty training him, he would have sporadic pee and poop accidents, and was doing everything, and it was still like once or twice a week, and I'd be like, what is happening? And took him in again, and sure enough, he had two different types of parasites, and supposedly the other vet didn't catch it, but once we caught it and once we got him on treatment, boom, done. Not another single accident. So these are things I want you to keep in mind, because a lot of times there are some underlying conditions, not always, but sometimes. And it's something that we just have to keep in mind. So holistic training, you want to look at the whole dog. You want to look at why they're doing the behaviors, uh, nutrition, health, wellness, and enrichment, keeping them stimulated both mentally and physically. I can't tell you, especially with puppies and adolescent dogs, how many behaviors, problem behaviors, simply because they're bored. But that's something that we'll talk about at length tomorrow. So things I want you to keep in mind: your mindset. Training is not just when you are intentionally training your dog. Training happens every interaction that you have with them, every second of the day. Behavior, the definition of behavior, is how an organism relates to its environment, period. And you are your dog's environment and everybody else. So if you're not rewarding a behavior, make sure nobody else is either. And even the most well-meaning people will sabotage your training because they don't know. So keep that in mind. Every second they're learning something, make sure that they're learning what you want them to learn, and take responsibility for it. Don't play the blame game. Don't be the victim. Don't blame your dog. He doesn't know. It's up to you to teach him what he's supposed to do. And bottom line, when it comes to the blame game, you're the one that picked out your dog. You picked out the border collie, the young border collie, and not the senior basset hound. So know what you're dealing with. Take responsibility for it, and make provisions accordingly, and then catch them being good. Catch them being good. Reward what you want. Don't fall into the no trap. God, the no trap. No, 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 no. Tell them what they're supposed to do. I hate the word no. You guys hear me talk about this a lot. I hate the word no because we say it all the time, and it comes so spontaneously out of our mouths, we don't even realize that we're saying it. So instead of saying no, teach what you want, and reprimands, instructive reprimands. Instead of just saying no, which means stop doing that, tell them what they're supposed to do. Sit, off, outside, leave it, whatever the command is, whatever you want them to do. So don't fall into the no trap. Teach what you want, catch them being good. And then tomorrow, same time, same place, I want to talk about putting your training on autopilot. We're all busy. This world just gets crazier and crazier by the day. I get it. So we want to put these things on autopilot so you don't even have to think about training your dog. And yeah, you're really taking advantage of every interaction that you have with them, teaching them what you want. So we're going to talk about putting it on autopilot, integrating the training into your life, and the consistency of it. See, here's the big thing. It all comes down to consistency. And again, you'll hear me rant. Talk about this all the time. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else with everything else. We start seeing results and then we slack off. You can't just do a really immersive, integrated, full-on training and your dog is doing really good and do it for 30 days, go on full out, and then that's it for the rest of their life. Training is lifelong. So we have to be doing this for the rest of their life, not in the intensity that you have to do it to start with. It's just like working out. You can't work out and eat clean for 30 days and get in good shape and then go, okay, I'm glad that's over with. I never have to work out again. If only that were true. If only that were true. It's something that we have to keep doing. And training is something that we have to keep doing with them, but we don't have to do it intensely, because once you get your dog to that certain point, then again, it's really just putting it on autopilot. It's just doing a little refresher and getting us in the habit of doing it and asking them to behave at that certain level. So it's building our habits to build their habits. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And some ways to make it easy too. Because, you know, if it's not easy, I don't want to do it. It's got to be easy, right? It's got to be easy. And we have to see immediate results. Because if we don't see immediate results, where's the fun in that? To be sure. And then Wednesday, I am going to go over how to read a food label. A dog food label, treat bags, what to look for, what are your deal breakers, what are the musts, and we'll continue on with this conversation. And so please comment below what you would like me to touch on, because this is all about you. It's all about your dog. That's why I'm here. And please post a picture of your dog, introduce your dog. I really, you know, I want this Facebook group to be a way for the community to come together, and you guys can support each other. And, you know, yes, I come on and I yak about all the things that I know, but you know, maybe you've got a good recipe, or you've got a good idea, or even just commiserating that, oh yeah, I did that. My dog used to do that, and now they're okay. I think it's a little group therapy for all of us, right? So much to know that your dog isn't the only one that does this, or that other people's dogs have done this and they've come out on the other side, and that it is possible, right? So please join the community, join the conversation, comment what you'd like to see, and then just give me posted. Now, let me just take a moment here. Does anybody have any questions? My dog just woke up when you said good dog. You know, I hear that so much. The dogs recognize my voice. It's so funny. And oh my gosh, I never realized how loud I talked. We were doing, because of COVID, we're doing the classes outside now. We're not doing it inside in the facility anymore. We're doing it outside. And one of the first puppy classes that we were doing when we got back together after COVID, one of the homeowners association, a person from the homeowners association that was near the park, actually came over and complained that we were too loud. Not the dogs barking, but that my voice was too loud and they could hear me. Not, but they were complaining about the dogs barking. It was my voice. So apparently I do talk loud. So, and the dogs learned that. So anyway, if you have questions, please comment. I'll try and touch base on those next time. And hopefully join us again tomorrow, same time, same place. And we'll have some more fun. And of course, the replay will be here in our group if you didn't have time to join us live, or you're just joining us now. Please rewatch it and let me know what you think. And I mean, honestly, guys, I'm here to what's going to help your dog. That's what it's all about. Remember, the mission is to enrich dogs' lives now and forever. At the beginning, that's how I started. That's how I'll end up. So let me know what you think. And again, I appreciate you spending your time watching this, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and go play with your dog. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care now. Bye-bye.